Critical race theory is not taught in elementary schools or middle schools or high schools.
That's great news. That's very exciting. I bet Bill's going to be excited to hear this. Joining me now, Bill Jacobson, Cornell University law professor and founder of the great Equal Protection Project. Bill, I'm so excited to hear that critical race theory is not in American schools. I bet you're excited to hear that too.
Yeah, so why are they pushing it so hard? Why did the National Education Association pass a resolution at its annual meeting saying it should be in every school? So the same people who say it's not being taught say it should be taught, and it is being taught. So Randy Weingarten's group, American Federation for Teachers, created a legal defense fund to protect teachers who are teaching critical race theory in K through 12. Why do they need a legal defense fund if it's not being taught? So it's just a word game and it's a shell game by them. Of course it's being taught.
Bill, how is this presented in law? And I ask this because law and medicine are the two fields that have me honestly terrified right now because they're such critical fields. We have to have law, we have to have medicine, and they're fields where this stuff is coming in hard.
Yeah, well, if you want to know medical-wise, so we've tracked this. It's in virtually every medical school, and it reveals itself in terms of prioritization of treatment based on race. They presume that if you have a certain skin color, that you are either disadvantaged or advantaged in your life. Therefore, you get favorable treatment when it comes to medication. In the law, it's unfortunately becoming the same thing. If you want to know what it looks like, read the dissent by Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Students for Fair Admissions case, the affirmative action case. Her dissent is basically a primer on critical race theory. It's looking at outcomes not based on the individual, which is the way the law has always focused on things, but it's looking at it based on group outcomes. So when somebody comes into a courtroom, you say, well, how has their group done? How that will determine how they get treated, as opposed to has this person individually, as an individual human being, been treated fairly? And that's how it works. And that's increasingly finding its way into the legal system.
Randy Weingarten had this to say. I found this to be very revealing.
Those same words that you heard in terms of wanting segregation post Brown v. Board of Education, those same words you hear today. It's not, I was kind of gobsmacked when I was talking to Southern Poverty Law Center, and they showed me the same words: choice, parental rights, and attempt to divide parents versus teachers. And that point, it was white parents versus other parents. But it's the same kind of word.
Bill, these people do think they're the good guys, right? Or are they just evil masterminds who lie about all this? Do they really see themselves as being, the anti-segregationists?
Well, I think they view themselves as the good guys and the good gals here, but it's a warped view of things. I mean, where is school choice and where is homeschooling spreading the fastest? The largest percentage growth in schooling parents are in the Black community. Those are the people who, more than any other group in the country, are saying the public schools are failing our children. So if you look at public schools, and we look at a lot of them, and you look at where there is de facto segregation, where they have affinity groups, where they separate out Black teachers from white teachers, where they separate out Black children from white children or Asian children. It's always the people like Randy Weingarten who are doing it. It's not the other parents. It's not the people who say we want to give people choice. Choice is a matter of freedom, school freedom, and it has nothing to do with segregation. What it had to do 80 years ago, 100 years ago, maybe that was different. I don't know. But in 2023, the school choice movement is a multiracial, cross-racial movement to free children from the tyranny of people like Randy Weingarten.
Bill, this student push, are students going left with these professors, or I should say as hard as these professors are, or are you starting to see some pushback against this from students who maybe not even right-wingers, but they just want to get on college campus and they just want to go to school, law school.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, at least in my own experience and my own observations, which I think are borne out by surveys, the faculty is more uniform in its leftism than the students are. Yes, it's absolutely true. Compared to 30 or 40 years ago, students have moved to the left, but not nearly as much as the faculty. At Cornell, where I teach, and at almost every higher tiered school, the faculty is a monoculture of leftism, of progressivism. The students are not that way. There's far more diversity of viewpoint among college students than there are among college professors or college administrators, who are just as bad as the professors. So, and I think there is a backlash. I think there is a pushback. I think the students, or at least many of them, are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They understand what's going on. They may feel powerless to fight against it. They've kind of got to go with the flow. But yes, I think students completely understand what the game is now with the professors and with the administrators. And they just want to survive and get out of college or get out of law school without nasty things being said about them on the internet that could damage their job prospects.
Doesn't that doom us in the end, though? And I'm not blaming them for it, but doesn't it doom us in the end if people really just want to get out and keep their head down and their mouth shut and get out without taking any flack? And you have such an aggressive left that's going to give them flack. Isn't that a losing game for us?
Well, it may be, yeah. I mean, I can't say that it's not. I think individuals need to make choices for their own lives. And I never criticize an individual who's fearful of losing a job. I never said, well, you should have spoken out and lost your job. You know, there are tens of millions of people in this country who live paycheck to paycheck. They cannot afford to lose their job. There are other people who do have an ability to speak out. And I'm one of those people, and you're one of those people. And those of us who are able to speak out need to do so. We can't rely on others. But yes, as a societal matter, and I think the internet has fed into this perhaps more than anything, the fear of being targeted, the fear of having your life destroyed by some internet mob that's going to track down your employer, going to track down your neighbors, going to harass your family members. It does have a very chilling effect. And I don't know what the answer is to that, except for more people to get the courage to speak out.
Do you think it's going to have a chilling effect on the Supreme Court, Bill? Look, these are human beings. They're flesh and blood human beings. I don't know any of them, but obviously for most people, they're just characters you see on the TV screen or in an article somewhere. Well, there have been already assassination attempts, loud protests in front of their homes. These are people with families. How can that not sway somebody?
I think it has to. I mean, and that's been a tactic that is not new. You remember during the Obamacare debate in 2012, Barack Obama and other Democrat politicians put a lot of pressure on the Supreme Court. And reportedly, we don't know it for a fact, but reportedly that swayed John Roberts to vote for Obamacare, to find that it was a tax. It was authorized by the tax provisions, taxing code of the Constitution. So that is a pressure tactic, and the left uses it very well. So absolutely, the things that are going on now with organized campaigns to organize protesters outside justices' houses, I mean, that's really unprecedented. And I know it's a point you've made a lot. The left uses everything at their disposal to shut down opposition. And if that means sending protesters to a Supreme Court justice's home, they're going to do it. If that means attacking people on the internet, like they're doing now with Clarence Thomas and Alito, this campaign claiming they're corrupt when they're not, they will use everything they have. And the right is just not as effective at pushing back. I'm not saying we're not effective at all, but not as effective as the left.
All right, let's talk about what happened in whatever way you can, Chip, because there's a lot of things at play here. And even the 8 who voted to bounce McCarthy all have different motivations and different reasons. I obviously hear many of the same things you hear. Setting all that aside, you didn't vote to bounce McCarthy. Now, you're not exactly some squishy middle-of-the-roader. Explain your reasoning.
Well, my reasoning is exactly where we sit right now. We're now forced with most likely adjourning tonight because people have left town, because now Republicans don't have agreement. Now we've got Democrats leaving town for Senator Feinstein tomorrow. There's a federal holiday Monday. I'm still in Washington. I'm not leaving town until there's either nobody here to meet with or until I can not accomplish something. I'll come back whenever we can. My view is we should stay here. We should select a speaker. I didn't think this was the right road to go down at this point. I want to stress at this point, because we have an obligation to do the work that they sent us here to do. We have appropriations bills. We just voted yesterday on the rule to go to do appropriations bills that now we're not doing. I think we need to get those passed. I think we need to set a line in the sand. I think we need to set an agenda against the Democrats. We were working on that. It was not where I wanted it to be yet, but I wanted to let the coach or the quarterback, take us through the fourth quarter and see if we could stick it to the Democrats before that 45 days was up. You know what? It happened. We are where we are now. Now we have a job. Go select a speaker. Don't get wrapped around the axle and all these let's change the rules. Nobody in America cares about that. Pick a speaker, cut spending, secure the border, stand up and stop the proxy war in Ukraine without accountability and making sure we do the right thing there. That's our job, and that's what we should do right now.
Okay, where do we stand right now on that? Obviously, I've seen all the news. Everyone else has seen it. Jim Jordan looks like he's throwing his hat in the ring. Steve Scalise looks like he's throwing his hat in the ring. Long-established leadership guys who are going to have plenty of friends behind them. Is there some, I don't know, outsider conservative upstart who might challenge those guys? Or do we even want to challenge those guys? I kind of like Jim Jordan. I like him a lot, actually.
Look, Jim Jordan is a very good friend of mine. Obviously, got a lot in common, and we've worked together on a lot of issues, including getting HR 2 through the Judiciary Committee. Probably the best thing we've done this year. Steve Scalise is a friend. Tom Emmer's a friend. Kevin Hearn's a friend. These are good, patriotic, God-fearing Americans that I'm happy to sit down and figure out, where we're going to go. But here's the one thing that matters. Whoever's going to be the speaker needs to put forward a plan that is crystal clear as to what we're going to do to win. I'm tired of not winning. And what I said at the Republican conference meeting yesterday morning was, we cannot go back out to the American people and run on having increased the debt ceiling $4 trillion and having done a continuing resolution of the Nancy Pelosi spending levels and have done nothing on the border and have not impeached Mayorkas or Biden and have not accomplished anything to pull back on the power of a weaponized DOJ and have not done what we need to do on the Department of Defense with respect to the woke, a destruction of our recruiting and the morale there. So we can't campaign on that, but more importantly, the American people can't continue to live in that universe. Inflation is killing them, open borders, crime, watching our military struggle. So we've got a job to do. And so I'm demanding of whoever's going to be the speaker, what are you going to do to accomplish those objectives? And that's what I think the question ought to be asked.
Chip, obviously people are starting to catch on to this whole debt thing. 33 trillion in debt, everyone knows we just surpassed that. What most people do not know is we've added $1 trillion in 3 months. In 3 months, we've added $1 trillion in debt, interest rates going up. This is exponentially growing, Chip, and it will destroy us all. Are there any emergency meetings about that, or are we all just crying about Kevin McCarthy and his political career?
Well, I would say that right now the good news is that a whole lot of the conversation for the last 24 hours has been, besides some of the wailing and gnashing of teeth, has been about those substantive matters. Who's going to get the job done? We cannot continue down this path. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this speakership began to unravel on Memorial Day weekend with a $4 trillion debt ceiling increase in which we did not substantially stop the leftist march. So that's central. Your point is correct, although I would very carefully remind you that it's more like 1.6 or 7 trillion that it has gone up since that time. And look, the reality is it's going to continue skyrocketing if we don't change it.
You believe, as some U.S. senators have said and Congress people have said, that an Iranian influence operation infiltrated the U.S. government?
I do not have any reason to believe an Iranian influence operation infiltrated the United States government.
Okay, so did it or didn't it? They're saying it didn't, so that leads me to believe it did. Let's ask Lee about it. Joining me now, Lee Smith, of course, great columnist with Tablet Magazine. Lee, you have an article out, quite a read in Tablet, about an infiltration operation into our own government. Lee, just act like I've never heard of this before. Most have not, sadly. Everyone knows who Jamal Bowman is. No one knows about this. What happened?
Yeah, what happened is that in 2014, the Iranians, in particular the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and remember how much American blood they have on their hands, especially in Iraq, but also in Lebanon and in Iran as well at the very beginning, 1978, 1979. They set up what they call the Iran Experts Initiative. It consisted of several members, several second-generation Iranians spread throughout Europe and the United States who are part of think tanks here in the United States. And they tapped them to influence American officials and other European officials. And one of them, one of these Iran Expert Initiative operatives, was pushed into the State Department by Biden's Iran envoy, now suspended, Robert Malley, or actually he's rather officially on leave. The security clearances have been suspended in April of this year. He pushed one of them into the State Department, where he was the Iran envoy, and now this operative agent named Ariane Tabatabai is now at the Pentagon, where the office she works in. She's not just at the Pentagon; she is the chief of staff for the Deputy Secretary of State, Deputy Secretary of Defense for Special Operations, meaning that she has top secret and compartmentalized clearances, giving her access to the most sensitive information that the American government holds, including special operations in real time. So it's an enormous scandal. And while I've seen some action by Republican senators, I believe Senator Dan Sullivan, there should be quite a bit more. They should be demanding not only her testimony and Malley's testimony, and they should not only have stripped her security clearances, but they should be lining up serious indictments for this. I mean, this is quite clearly espionage. We know it because we have evidence of an email tranche between high-ranking Iranian officials, including this one IRGC official, the former foreign minister of Iran, Javad Zarif, as well as these, I believe there were between 6 and 10 operatives, Iranian operatives, seated into different Western capitals, including Washington, D.C., our own.
Jeez. Pretend like I'm stupid, which you know me, that's not difficult. Explain to me why she would still be in her post. Look, even if you didn't fire her, I realize she hasn't been convicted or deported or anything like that. In the very least, that's an immediate suspension. Look, pay her, I don't care. Get her out of that role. What is the explanation for that?
Well, as I explain in my piece, I speak with a former CIA official who explains that, look, the optimistic reading is that once the FBI knew about this, they started watching her moves. They have her, as he says, they have her apartment all tacked up. But I think that's unlikely. I think the evidence points to a much less optimistic reading, which is simply that this is, remember, the Iran nuclear deal was Obama's prize foreign policy initiative. And the purpose of that was not to keep Iran from getting a bomb. Anyone who's read the agreement and who understands what the sunset clauses in that agreement understand what it is. It was meant to guarantee the Iranian nuclear weapons program and to give it an umbrella guaranteed by the United States of America. Obama wanted to pass Iran a nuclear bomb. Donald Trump withdrew from that deal in May 2018, and now Joe Biden and his administration are keen to restore that deal, to be able to pass Iran a bomb, to legalize their nuclear weapons program, and that's one of the reasons why they've given them $16 billion over the last month. So the reason that they believe it's okay to have an Iranian spy in the American government at these very high-level positions is because they believe the Iranians are now an American ally. That's how Obama wanted it. That's how they're acting. That's why this is important to Biden. All of the people who are working on Iran, who are now in the Department and the State Department, these were all Obama people. Robert Malley, the guy who's now, again, sidelined with his clearances suspended. This was Obama's top aide on Iran as well. All the same people are back, right? John Kerry, the Obama-Biden faction, they believe Iran is an ally, and that's why they've downgraded relations with traditional American Middle East allies like Saudi Arabia and Israel, and why they've upgraded relations with Iran. They're arming an ally. That's what's happening. It's that simple. And when you hear people in the press describe it, oh no, they're stopping Iran from getting a bomb, it's nonsense. I just want to say, so that people understand how to know it's nonsense, there are clauses in that agreement, right, that are destined to expire over time. These clauses restrict certain Iranian activities. The fact that they're designed to expire over the time, they're called, therefore, sunset clauses, shows what it means. This agreement was never meant to stop Iran from getting a bomb. It was to put it under a protective U.S. umbrella so that the Islamic Republic of Iran, in spite of all the blood it has on its hands, in particular from Iraq most recently, so that they would have an industrial scale nuclear weapons program. That's why.
Is there a chance that you would run as an independent? Do you look at that ever? Like, and how do you even evaluate that?
Yeah, I mean, I if they really shut down the process, we're right now, we're grappling with the DNC, trying to get them to do the right thing. But if they rig the process so that I can't possibly win, which is how it's rigged right now, then I would have to look at other options.
Okay. What are we supposed to make of that? What do you make of that? I wonder what Kay makes of that. Joining me now, Kay Smythe. You can read all of her work at the Daily Caller, and you should read all of her work. Okay, Kay, what are we supposed to make of all this? Is this the end of the world? Is this a good thing? What do we make of this?
I don't think it's ever a bad thing when you start a hit with a Theo Von clip. Like, dude, I'm so convinced that we've forgotten how to talk to trees. No, I kid. But I don't think it is the end of the world, but I think this is a really bad situation for the Republican Party. I think the RFK being so heavily censored by the Democrats, basically being like they're writing laws literally to stop him from being able to run. I think this is going to pull a lot of voters away from the Republican side. I also think, actually, though, a lot of people on the left will go for him. He seems to have that sort of like celebrity grab, that celebrity attention at the moment, and a lot can happen. It's still more than a year away, so I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, I don't think it's good for the Republicans at all.
Okay, let's start there, because I actually agree with you. In your mind, why does he pull votes and more votes from Republicans and Democrats?
For me, it's two things. And you're going to think I'm crazy on one, so I'm going to start with the one that's not crazy. I think it is the vaccine stuff, because I think that bleeds into this idea of freedom that the Democrats have forgotten. And I think that his stance when it comes to scientific research, I mean, it's one of the reasons that I think he is one of the few brilliant candidates we have right now. Obviously, I can't vote, and there's a lot of stuff he says that I don't love. I think the other thing is actually his grip on the environment. You know, it took me leaving a liberal city, spending some time in a conservative city, and then moving down to a pretty mixed state to realize that most people do actually care about the environment. And all the kind of crap that's going on, like people spewing on both sides of the spectrum, everything about sort of climate change, we really just tend to ignore the actual environment when it comes to that discussion. Whereas his record when it comes to environmental protection and letting that environmental protection actually go into protecting the lives of people, and we all have to live one-on-one with our natural surroundings. His record on that is kind of irrefutable. And I think he just speaks a lot of common sense to a lot of people who are used to just the politicking and the crazy.
Why wouldn't, if you're a Democrat, Kay, which I know you're not, but if you're a Democrat, Why not go all in for RFK? I admit I don't think like that dirty commie scum, so I don't know how they think. But I look at him, he's a Democrat, he's appealing. Joe Biden's 8,000 years old. I know RFK's old, but he's a good-looking dude. He takes most of their positions on the issues. If I'm a Democrat, why wouldn't I vote for RFK?
All the Democrats I know come back at me and say, oh, well, he's crazy. And then the next thing I say is, tell me one crazy thing he said. Oh, well, I don't really know. I got into this debate with my family the other weekend, and I made them sit down and watch his whole interview with Joe Rogan. But that was sort of more about the vaccine stuff. But I think that really that's what it comes down to. They don't like him because he's a real disruptor within this sort of very safe space that the Democrats think that they've had, or Democratic voters, I should say, think that they've had built for them by the current administration, which is basically just like the residual vomit of whatever like Bill Clinton did back in the day. So I think it would, that we're talking about 30 years of change. Like he's going to come in and disrupt what we've been used to for literally my entire lifetime from the Democratic Party. And a lot of older people, especially boomers, they don't want that. They freaked out during COVID and they just don't want to hear it. And plus this guy is censored more than like me, and I'm pretty heavily censored and shadow banned.
Kay, do you get the sense that your Democrat friends or family members, do you get the sense that they really feel like they have total control of everything now, and maybe a wild card like RFK kind of leads them to believe that might risk that? They have it all. Even though Joe Biden's a doddering old fool, they have it all. They have every institution. Why risk it?
Maybe. I think with, when it comes to my family, like they're all British, they can't vote. I don't really care what they have to say, but I love them. Out here, I think it really actually just comes from a place of ignorance. Like, this is going to sound awful to say. None of my Democratic friends and none of my liberal friends are going to watch this, and they're kind of used to the stuff that I come out with anyway at parties. But we're talking about a demographic of people who 25, 30 years ago were like punk rockers and grungy, and, they were experimenting with drugs. That has pretty much flipped 180. And now we're talking about a group of people who, read the woke version of Rolling Stone and they still think it's their Bible. Like, we're not talking about people who've necessarily progressed their intellect since the good old days. And then younger people, I just think they're exhausted and they're all trying to like pick their genders and stuff. So I don't really listen to anything that they have to say anyway.
For too long, we've been led to believe that communism is a thing of the past. But the truth is, communism is alive. It's here, and it's infiltrating every aspect of American life. Introducing the Anti-Communist Manifesto by Jesse Kelly, the practical guide for patriots ready to defend our nation from its most dangerous enemy. Discover the shocking extent of communist infiltration in our education system, their alliance with American corporations, and the twisted truth behind environmentalism. This eye-opening book exposes the true face of communism and empowers you to fight back. Join the fight for freedom. Pre-order your copy of the Anti-Communist Manifesto today by going to jessekelleybook.com.